Hello and good evening from Miss Liz at the Rockville Center Public Library. This is story time, and I'm so happy you're with me. We're going to read a couple of spooky stories for our spooky story time. Nothing too scary, but just spooky. The first book is Bone Dog by Eric Rohmann. Bone Dog. There's a dog with a bone, and then there's a skeleton dog. Ella and Gus were best friends for a very long time. One night, Ella said, "I'm an old dog and won't be around much longer, but no matter what happens, I'll always be with you." For a long time, they sat together in the moonlight. Then Ella said, "A promise made under a full moon cannot be broken." So nice, two old friends in the full moon. After Ella was gone, Gus didn't feel like leaving the house, but he did. And he didn't want to do his chores, but he did. And when Halloween came around, Gus didn't feel like trick-or-treating, but he pulled on his costume and trudged out the door. Oh, it's a skeleton costume. Nice trick-or-treat pumpkin. When the night grew dark and his bag grew heavy, Gus started home, past the school, around the pond, and through the graveyard. The wind moaned, the clouds swallowed the moon, and then Gus was surrounded by skeletons. Oh, that's spooky. "Come along now," said a skeleton. "It's Halloween, and you know what that means." "What does it mean?" asked Gus. "Numbskull," snorted another skeleton. Then they all danced and sang. "We shriek and growl, screech and swoon, hiss and howl, neath the blood-red moon." You know, skeleton stuff. "But I'm not a skeleton," said Gus. "I'm a boy." "A boy? And he's alive." You know what that means. Bon appetit, which means you're yummy. They lunged at Gus. "You've got guts, kid, but not for long." Oh no. Just then, the wind calmed and the moon broke shimmering from the clouds. The skeletons whirled around. "Ella," cried Gus. "A bone dog?" cried the skeletons. Oh, how nice. His friend came back to help him. "Is that all you've got?" said the skeletons. "Well, tickle my ribs. Why would we be afraid of a bone dog?" Ella barked and growled. It gave Gus an idea. He joined in, barking and growling, together with all their might, and at the top of their voices, boy and dog howled into the night. You see them howling up there. A moment later, an answer came from the distance. The skeletons stopped dead in their tracks. "Woof? Dogs? Real live dogs?" Uh-oh, skeletons are scared, and there they go running away. Because what do dogs love? Dogs love bones. There go the dogs. Look what this dog has in his mouth. One of the skeleton's bones. That showed them. Afterward, Gus and Ella sat together in the moonlight. Gus asked, "Will I see you again?" "A promise made under a full moon cannot be broken," said Ella. And with that, she disappeared into the night. And Gus picked up his bag and headed for home. The end. And that was Bone Dog. Now, another one we have is The Too Scary Story. By Bethanie, Murguia. One dark night in a house on the hill. Papa asks, "How about a bedtime story?" "Yes," exclaims Walter. "Make it a scary story," says Grace. "I've got my wand." "All right," says Papa. One night, Two brave explorers and their dog were walking home through the forest. It was very, very dark. It is dark. Yes, the spookiest, creepiest kind of dark, says Grace. Too scary, says Walter. Well, as they ran out of the woods, hundreds of tiny twinkling lights appeared. Fireflies, Walter cried. Yay. Papa, fireflies are not scary, says Grace. I want to see bears. Just a minute, says Papa. Beyond the fireflies, deep in the bushes, crept all kinds of creatures. Oh, that is spooky. I can hear them all breathing, whispers Grace. Too scary, says Walter. Don't worry, those creatures were just settling into bed for the night, says Papa. I hope that's not the end of the story, mutters Grace. Oh, there's more, says Papa. Not everyone was ready for bed, faintly at first and then louder. The children heard footsteps. Don't worry, Walter. I have my wand, says Grace. Their dog growled a long, low growl. Just behind them, on the path, was a shadow. Does your wand work on shadows? Whispered Walter. I'm not sure, Grace whispered back. The children dashed home, up the stairs, into their room, slamming the door behind them. Papa, nothing in the closet, please, begs Grace, or under the bed, whispers Walter. Papa, are you there? The bedroom door began to open. Creak. Oh, be gone, shadow monster, Grace shouts. It worked. I turned that evil shadow into Papa, Grace says. I wasn't scared at all, says Walter. Papa, can we sleep with the light on, says Grace. I have a better idea, says Papa. Good night, my brave explorers. And they have a nice jar of fireflies. That is the end of the Too Scary story, and I hope it wasn't too scary. Now, our last book is called The Witch's Hand by Peter Utton. So the witches on the end papers. Isn't that cool? Spooky. The Witch's Hand. Yikes, said George. What's that? And he pointed to a horrible, brown, crinkly thing pinned to the wall. Dad looked up. Oh, why, that's a... And then he paused and looked down at his son. Why, that's a... No, I can't tell you. It's too scary. Scary? Cried George. Why is it scary? Tell me, tell me. Oh, all right then, said Dad, but it is scary. And he lifted George onto his lap. Well, said Dad, last night when you and your brother were, and Mommy and I were all in bed, I woke up suddenly. I sat up and stared into the darkness. I heard a sort of slither, slither, pat, pat, cackle, cackle. Someone or something was moving down the hall. I slipped out of bed and crept to the door. Listening, I heard again a slithery, pattering, cackling sound coming closer. I rushed on tiptoe to your bedroom. The door was slightly open. I peeped in. My hair stood on end as I gazed in horror as I saw a huge witch dressed in a great black cloak and tall pointed hat bending over your little beds. Look at Dad's hair standing on end. He is scared. By the dim glow of your nightlight, I could see she was horribly ugly. She peered down at you with an awful grin, and from between her green, occasional teeth squeezed a grotesque cackle. She lifted up a dirty sack, and as her bony hand reached out towards you, I tried to shout, "Stop, you horrible old hag," but all I said was, "Ah!" There's the witch, going to the sleeping boys in their bunk beds. The witch stopped, slowly turned and fixed me with a terrible bloodshot stare. Pointing a disgusting finger at me, she hissed, a most evil hiss. "Stand back, I must have these boys." There she is. "Oh no, you won't," I whispered. and staggering over to her, I grabbed her large, warty wrists. Yuck, I thought. Just touching her made me shiver. We struggled for many long minutes in a dreadful silence until I was able to grab her and give her a good shake. See them struggling up in the window? There they are. Boy, that's very brave of him to get so close. Uggle, uggle, aggle, she squawked and wept, went limp and smelly. I've won, I thought, but suddenly a blood-freezing cackle, and the vile old woman began growing larger and stronger and more revolting every second. And there she is, so big. Look how little Dad looks. What will happen now? Quiet, called Mom, poking her head around the bedroom door. Don't wake the boys. Quick, I gasped. Get the sword. Sword? Which sword? Asked Mom. Yes, the witch sword. It's in the broom cupboard, I said. Oh, that sword, cried Mom, and rushed from the room. You silly little man, cackled the witch, bending her face down to mine. She blew a sickening cloud of smelly breath and cobwebs into my face, and she grabbed me. This is the end, I thought. But then Mom appeared in the doorway wielding the great sword from the broom cupboard. Too late, hissed the witch, and stabbed me with a dagger full of vipers. Vipers are snakes. Whoa, she's really got him. Take that, cried Mom, and with one bound and a great swish of the sword, she cut off the horrible hand, and it fell to the ground with its fearful weapon. Not fair, the witch screeched, and with a squelchy, sputtery sound, she started to sink down and down and down until, with a final watery splop, she disappeared. There she goes, sinking, sinking, sinking. Wow, what brave parents. Phew, I said, that was close. And Mom and I looked at you and your brothers still sleeping quietly in your beds. Look, said Mom, pointing at the floor, and there lay the horrible hag's hand, all brown and withered and crinkly. I'll pin that to the wall, I said, to remind me to lock all the doors at night. Good idea, said Mom. I'll make some tea. It's a horrible hand, but the boys are sound asleep in their beds. And that's the story of the witch's hand, said Dad, and George gazed up at the horrible, brown, crinkly thing. Is that really the witch's hand, he whispered. What do you think? No, replied Dad, and he reached up and picked it off the wall. It's a leaf I found in the park the other day. It was a beautiful reddish gold color, but now it's gone all horrible and brown and crinkly, and he crushed it to dust in his hand and dropped it in the garbage can. It was just a story, he laughed. George looked at the wall, and then he looked at the garbage can. Then he looked at his mom and saw that she was smiling. What a scary story, tell it again, cried George, and he laughed too. Do you like scary stories? I hope so. That was a spooky one, The Witch's Hand. And now I want to say good night and sweet dreams to you. Good night from Miss Liz at the Rockville Center Public Library. See you soon.